Playing this game for countless hours has driven me into an almost vegetative state in which the only thing my body physically lets me do is make this video. I don't have much background information on the developers for Deepwoken, but from the 5 minutes of research that I proudly conducted myself, there seems to be a slight connection between the game of Rogue Lineage and surprise surprise, Deepwoken. As described, it's a difficult game with permanent character loss. Losing characters is part of the game that should be expected if you suck.
This nigga is trash.
I only knew about Deepwoken's existence a week prior to it being released, and from what I can remember, it was major because its release was anticipated for over 2 years, which is quite a long time, guys. Think about that. I was 13 years old when Deepwoken was announced, Jesus Christ. And with the 2-year wait comes with this. There's been a bunch of mixed opinions, but listen, what matters most in this video is my opinion, obviously. And with that, I think the game was and is pretty good. Loading into the game greets you with a character builder, where you get a bunch of categories that you can customize yourself. Race is a pretty interesting concept, where you have a random pool of characters each with different buffs and abilities. I'll go through each one very quickly. Vesperians have masochistic tendencies and a cool mask. Ganymedes don't go insane as quick as other races. Capras can buff teammates and have a cool mask. Khans have the ability to use equipment when they shouldn't be able to. Gremmas are anorexic and have a compass. Kanos are Capras but worse. Adreds can manipulate a stat once a level. Celtas are pirates. Etrians have resistance to acid rain, yes I'm being serious. And last and least, Felinors, which are literally cats. Yep, you can be a furry. Thankfully, since the developers aren't incredibly stupid, they made sure that all these races are completely balanced and don't have an overwhelming advantage against others, so yeah, thumbs up for once. Starting weapon is fairly simple, but to sum up the PvP quickly, the sword is a neutral point, the stiletto is shit unless you're god at this game, and the same applies for the battle axe. Attunements are basically, to people that don't like to read long words, magic. You can obtain any magic in the game, but you need to go to the specific trainers in each of the respective areas of the map to gain access to them so they can spawn with it next time. Next time being when you Core attributes are important stats which pretty much decide how your player is gonna end out. They also give very minor statistical buffs which really do not matter that much, to be honest. The last important section of the menu is boons and flaws. In my opinion, they should have just called it strengths and weaknesses, since 90% of the player base needs that kind of vocabulary to understand. I'm too lazy to go through all of these, so you can just pause the video to read them. And one thing I want to talk about though is that you can choose to either have 1 boon and 1 flaw, or 2 boons and 2 flaws, and also 2 flaws and 1 boon. Why is this an option, and why does it give no further advantage? Oh well. Moving on to spawns, there's 2 starting islands by the names of Etria and Isle of Vigils. Etria is pretty much the home base of this entire game, where you can sell stuff, buy stuff, do quests, and etc. There's more places on the map where you can do this as well, but Etria does it the best, trust me. The Isle of Vigils is an interesting spawn, where you'll see similar things to Etria, but a slightly different layout. The main difference between Etria and the Isle of Vigils though, is that there's a trainer below the palace thingy. I don't even know what to call this place actually. You can gain XP from the trainer. If you're starting completely new and have never touched this before, then it's alright I guess. When you lose to the trainer, your HP simply gets reset and you can start fighting again. It's a good way to get used to the fighting mechanics. And speaking of the fighting mechanics, let's go through it. You might see a bunch of funny looking bars at the bottom of your screen, and each incredibly enough means something. Your posture is exactly where you think it is. If you hold block, it begins to go up from incoming attacks. If the posture bar reaches 100, you get guard broken, which is basically a short stun. And for whatever reason, it looks like all your internal organs have just been slashed out, but oh well. You can reduce this posture by parrying, and thinking about it, that's literally it. Below that is your HP. When you die, you have a second life before you get sent to Roblox hell, and you know it's your second life when the bar becomes stained, like the most Rogue Lineage looking thing ever. But if you level up, hooray, you get your life back. Under that is your armor, which can be made from schematics and stuff around the blah 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 map, blah 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 blah. The 3 circles indicate cooldowns of parrying, rolling, and drinking potions, but these might as well not exist because no one ever looks at them anyways. Under that is your ether bar, which is basically charged for complete idiots. Every time you use a mantra, this goes down depending on how heavy the mantra move was and how much you upgraded it. It can also be increased by armor, talents, and to make watching this video even more complicated, charisma and intelligence, so yeah. Now the final bar you'll see is called reservoir, which is basically storage for your ether. If this gets to 0, then I don't think your ether bar will go anywhere anytime soon. This can be refilled by talents and eating elemental ingredients, which will come up soon. You can parry, block, and dodge with you having 2 main attacks, a light and a heavy. Often your light attacks don't differ between weapons, but your heavy attacks change massively. And of course, we can't forget about magic attacks, but I think that's a topic for later on. And assassinating, and superhearing, and tacits, and bells, and talents, and I think it's time we get onto the actual game itself. I've talked far too much about subjects not even related to progressing, but let's discuss one more important thing. Training gear can be bought around the map for notes, which is basically currency in this game. I'll put a small chart on the screen so you can get a good idea of what the economy is like. Training gear is used to upgrade your stats when you get XP from killing things, and it's basically how you you progress. Okay, done? I think so. The game lacks a straight sense of direction to new players, and you'll certainly have to look up where to go if you want to actually start playing the game properly. An NPC does tell you to go to an area called Lower Arisia, but without a map or any directions, you can kind of start to see a problem. But once you get there, you'll see groups of bandits sitting around campfires that rush you the moment they even catch a different breeze of wind. They're relatively easy to kill, and once you defeat all the bandits, the campfire turns into a chest with loot. Did I ever mention that campfires are literally the pinnacle of this game? Simply sitting next to them regens your HP, sanity, ether, reservoir, posture, and armor. Without them, you can't take off any armor or gear unless you have another piece that replaces it. And manches too to upgrade them, but I'll explain later. So you kill bandits again, and again. And again, and again. Oh, what's this, a new mob? And again, until you're level 20, in which you go to another island to progress, guys. I think the developers of the game kind of realized that this was a just slightly boring way to play the game after you start a new life. So one of the devs decided to add something called the Trial of One. Minitrisa, a cold, unforgiving island, if you're a pussy. Go through here, dodge the 30 bandits, down the ladder, into a gleaming, bright, unknown door, and now you're here. It's a trial, no genius intellect used to deduct that, and there's a series of late and straight up endgame mobs that you have to fight, strictly at power 1, which is hard if you suck at the game. The first trial is a bunch of orbs that can simply be defeated by pressing F and nothing else. It does get a little hard near the end, but hey, just smash F without any sort of complex pattern and you've beaten it. The trial offers free investment points every time you beat a level, which basically deletes the need of using any training item if you use them wisely, which is pretty handy. When you level up, you have a selection of cards that appear on your screen. These can be magic talents, buffs, debuffs even, but these are, let's say, a reward for leveling up. Due to the insane RNG that is consisted in getting better cards than others, it makes the game pretty fun and repetitive. You can increase this RNG by several ways.
Fishing,
beating a trial, killing bosses, special mobs, and even players. It caps at 43% because I think if it was at 100 then the game would not be very fun, but hey, this is just deducted from my genius intellect. The next trial is a shark with arms and legs called a megalodon. You'll also find this mob in that Lower Arisia place I was talking about earlier, but it's pretty rare. It has 4 attacks, one being literally bending down and throwing off spikes off its back somehow, a normal swipe, 2 swipes, and if you're particularly unlucky, a kick. This kick sends you fucking flying and does a decent amount of damage, but hey, just block, parry, and dodge. Next up we have a stone giant that has similar patterns to the shark thing, except it throws a temper tantrum once in a while. Afterwards, expect a Florida crocodile in which every move can be parryable, making it arguably easier than the Sharko and the Golem, but we move on. Just make sure you roll when you see red though. 2 angels appear when you beat the Florida croc, and these cunts are the most unorthodox fellows you will ever meet in Deepoken. A dude with an axe which you kinda just block, parry and stab, repeating around legitimately 20 times before it folds like a summer launcher. A lanky ass stick golem which is actually quite hard at first, but after you realize you just roll and hit, then that's quite easy. More orbs, just spam F. And finally, a hood Sharko with orbs. It dies in about 8 hits, so it's relatively easy in my opinion. After you beat the trials with a shit ton of luck given while picking 17 cards, you're given another one called the Mark of a Lone Warrior, which is I think 3 times XP, so yeah, there's your bandit beta solution of repetitiveness. Last thing to mention, after beating the croc you unlock the Minitrisa spawn, so yeah, sweet. I think to get a good understanding of the game, I'll use this map as a solid base point for the things I want to go over. Also, the white highlighted areas are places where your boat suddenly goes 5 times quicker for no reason, so yeah. I'll advance through each area chronologically, meaning it getting harder and harder, so what isn't better than starting at the starting island for the 3rd time, Lower Arisia. Despite this being the first island that you should go to as a beginner, there's lots of key quests that you should definitely do that will help you progress. There's an NPC that tells you about a certain item called a glider. This glider blueprint can be found in a cave located in Arisia, parkouring through an acid cave until you reach a little haven. At the haven you'll find some little bitches crying about having ditched their people or something that doesn't affect you at all whatsoever. Once you pressure them into giving you the blueprint despite not having talked about one at all in the dialogue, go to a blacksmith and give him the schematic. This gives you the ability to make a glider even though you gave the schematic to the blacksmith, which is quite handy for moving around the map. Another one is probably one of the most important quests in the entire game, and it's uncapping your weapons. What do you mean by that? Well, every stat is capped at 75 normally, but you can uncap them to 100 by doing different quests. Believe it or not, you kinda use your weapon quite a lot in this game if you didn't know already, so uncapping your weapon is pretty much important. There's also several weapons that require you to uncap your stat, which are all very good. First, you have to acquire a Gale Stone, which is dropped from one of these cunts fighting other cunts. They're relatively rare and it might take you a while, but in the end you'll get one. You also need to have a 75 in a weapon stat. Then going through a bunch of annoying golems and laser beams, parkouring through the most hidden nooks and crannies you'll ever think of going through, you find this guy who's dying, but oh yeah, he's okay because you gave him the Gale Stone. Then you go to the Isle of Vigils, where you talk to his brother who's shitting and crying because he thinks he's dead, and pretty much was actually, and he'll thank you. Finally, you go to a funny looking man in the training area, and you'll simply uncap your weapon, voila. The final quest is a late game one, which I'll probably talk about later, because hey, chronological and that's Burning Stone Gardens. Oh, I forgot about another quest, which is uncapping intelligence. Get this, go to a very isolated area of the map, do a little puzzle, go to a little cave with funny blue mushrooms, eat the mushrooms, and hey, uncapped intelligence. Game will tell you to farm here until around level 25, in which you stop getting XP that lets you level up, so now you have two options, either kill those golem shitheads or go to Songseeker Islands. Mini Trees is also an option, but you don't get as much XP. Songseeker Island only has 3 different mobs, believe it or not, and only 2 NPCs, which is quite funny, and also the island is extremely small, and also the only part you really need to go to is up here where most of the mobs spawn. So yeah, I don't know about you, but it seems kind of undeveloped, but whatever. The entities are Songseekers, which are basically praying monks with ice, fire, and lightning magic separately. Other than that, there are literally no other mobs that should bother you. There's this red ass Sharko, but you will literally never see it, so it's fine. I mentioned 2 NPCs earlier, one of them being the fire magic trainer and the other one being a drunk weird shit that gives you a funny card that lets you teleport magically to 1v1s or 3v3s. Cool. I'm totally not gonna abuse the amount of XP you get from these fights, right? I'll come back to this guy very far into this video because the NPC is also important for another thing, but chronologicality, mate. And be careful, if you lose your 3 skulls then you get sent to Roblox hell. And that's it. Yeah, that is actually it for this entire island. Oh, and since I mentioned the fire trainer, let's clear up attunements real quick. I'm gonna start addressing magic / attunements as elements from now on, because it's easier. The Frostdraw trainer can be found in Etris at the back of the map, the Gale Breathe trainer can be found in the Isle of Vigils, the Shadowcast trainer can be found in the depths, and last but not least, the Thundercore trainer, which is at Summer Isles, the next island that I'll be covering. I'm purposely not covering the Mantralist trainer because that can stay hidden. Just kidding, stick around and I will later in the video. Amusingly enough, if the Songseeker Island wasn't contentless enough, the Summer Isle is even worse in some amazing way. But there's still some useful and handy things to cover on this island, so I'll go through that now. If you didn't take the hint as soon as you reach the vicinity of this island, it's based on guns and stuff. Oh yeah, guns, that's cool. It's also like a little hub where you can sell shit. There's also a small side mission where you can collect red crates dotted around and give it to this guy for a reward. There's a person below the island that can put stats from one thing to another, but it costs 1,000 nodes, so yeah, no thanks. The final mid-game island that I'll be talking about is Mini Treesa, which has been mentioned a little throughout this video so far. The bottom half of this area is not very difficult and you'll relatively be a-okay. The part where it gets interesting is the other half of this island. There's a whole ass late game mech that you straight up cannot beat until you're at least like level 50, and past the mech is a place called the Valley of Heroes. Interesting place at winter to be fairly honest, especially the part where golems and meteors come out the sky and rock your shit, but they're the same ones from the Trial of One, they just have 5 times the HP. To be honest, this place is just generally quite weird and not developed correctly, but hey, it's just a Roblox game guys, not that deep. And hey, since you've progressed so much, I think it's time you do some more interesting things. How about buying masses of wood over and over again until you get good enough reputation to talk to the lord of the town to do his dirty work for him? An NPC by the name of Kenneth is a little about the lord though, so you want to help him out. After you get a funny looking key from the Lord Regent, head over to the Burning Stone Gardens and pass the acid. Then go to a funny looking teleporter and into a manor situated in one of the most inconvenient places in the entire map. Like bro, imagine you want to buy some milk from the corner store and you live in this manor, like bruh. Kill a bunch of shit mobs, hood golems, and yeah, a transgender fellow starts beating the shit out of you. He uses wind and fists, a bunch of annoying ass attacks and counters, so just be a little careful when you fight him. He has this annoying ass windshield that you have to hit him like 50 times before it breaks, so that's kind of fun. Mega Knight Storm with suffocation and wombo combo, plus him randomly teleporting to you and giving you a strong left to the dome. Once you beat him though, you get a shit ton of shit loot and most importantly, uncapping your element. When you beat the Duke, you start to realize that you have a lot more power to do shit, if you know what I mean. It's kind of like you got past the true tutorial of a game and now you're just free roaming. With that talent you got from beating the Duke that lets you uncap your element stat, you can go to your trainer and upgrade your mantras to level 5. Did I ever say you could upgrade your mantras? I didn't? Okay, well you now can. I mentioned ages ago too that you could modify your mantras, but I didn't really specify that, did I? There's loads of weird ass modifiers that can be found from mob drops, chest, crafting, and it's probably one of the most inconsistent things in the game. It's also not heavily recommended that you do have to modify these mantras, because the more modifiers you put on them, the more ether it takes for you to use them, meaning that you can't use multiple mantras at once without waiting. But with a few tweaks and talents, I think this can be avoided very easily. But hey, that's just deepoken for you. Meat Lord is an NPC that offers meat. Sometimes he scams you, sometimes he doesn't, but that's just life. Sometimes a mech beast with some ice dude that definitely cannot beat the massive robot, and it does a lot of damage, so unless you're level 50 and above, stay away from it. And even if you're level 50 and above, you should still stay away from it. Hive people. Some of these guys are boxing demons and some of them have electric javelins which can launch you across the map if you're not careful. Big ass spider, lanky stick golems, Florida crocs, big Florida crocs. Oh, see this massive green gate in the middle of a plain desert? Washing your face somewhere extremely discreet and it magically opens. I'll get back to this later. Now let me get to Fort Merit. The authoritarians live here and they're a faction in the game just like the Summer Isle people and Etrians. They like to get pissed off very easily and I think they're not very good people according to the lore of the game, and also because they have Etrians and Neve people literally locked up in cells. But you can do something about this. Rescue a maximum of 3 hostages and you get some pretty cool loot. But then these guys get pissed off and there's almost no way to get your reputation back. The average AI is, but you need to be careful for the wardens which will absolutely rock your shit at any level, so just cope. And there's this massive dude in one of the cells that casually just beats the shit out of you and then uncaps your fortitude too, so yeah. But back to the big green gate. The area here is called the Lord's Grove and there's not much here other than an NPC that clears a rep with the hive people and most importantly, teleporting. First though, you need something called an oath which I completely forgot about until now, to be honest. As of right now, you can get 3 oaths, starting with Oathless, which is a standard card which you can pick from level 30, Blind Seer, which requires these cards and 40 willpower, going to a funky ass place above Lower Arisia and then reading some goofy shit hieroglyphics with a blindfold, and Vision Shaper, 50 charisma, 10 willpower, doing a little game with this bitch at Mini Tree, and a Void Feather drop from Corrupted Owls, which are one of the hardest non-boss mobs in the game. Talking to another bitch and then the freakiest thing in the game, and you got it. Anyways, the point of me bringing up these oaths is that it's required to use the shrine thingy and also washing your face from earlier. These shrines are teleporters around the map which allow you to move very quickly and not waste time on boating everywhere. There's a shrine in the Prick's Garden, 1 in a hidden village at Upper Arisia, and there's 3 at this new area called the Great Hive Aratel. The left one sends you to the Summer Isles, the middle one sends you to the Lord's Grove, and the right one sends you to Upper Arisia, the temple where you get Blind Seal. Let's run back to the Great Hive Aratel though, cause this is literally a brand new island that I kinda skipped past because I was talking about something else. Great Hive Aratel is a little hub like Etris and the Summer Isles, except it has a few more things. There's a potion that lets you train physical mantras here, like rapid punches or even summoning a cauldron. But other than that, there's nothing really interesting or helpful towards progressing a game, although there is a massive telescope that talks about the game's lore a little. This big monkey is another boss in the game and it can only be found at Monkey's Paw. To spawn it, there's a so-called eternal fire in which you give it dumb offerings like Sharko hide and boom boom he's here. To be honest, I don't really know how to narrate or describe this thing. It's just a big monkey with like 4 different attack moves which all can be learned very easily. It goes insane a little bit when it's about to die and then when it does die it kind of folds like a chair. Oh yeah, there's a shit ton of loot too, cool. This is supposed to be a group based boss fight, but there's people out here just dead ass soloing it by stacking barrels and doing stupid shit, so that's also funny. The island that it's on is also straight up barren and has no further content other than the monkey, which is a little disappointing, but oh well, that's just life. I'll run through the 2 last bosses in this part of the game quickly as I don't really want to waste time explaining them and their attacks, so here we go. Ferryman is situated on Boatman's Watch and it's basically like Duke but electric. You spawn this guy by placing 4 campfires on the spot and he just appears. And Kaido, which is a sea dragon serpent that rocks his ship but can be easily cheesed if you go behind him, also giving you something called a Mama, which is another buff that you can use in PvP. But yeah, that's it. Astonishingly enough, that is all there is to be offered in Deepwoken's Etrian Luminant. But I still haven't covered a major part of the game that is consisted elsewhere, not in the overworld, and that's the depths. You can get sent to the depths in multiple ways, one being going in the whirlpools near Boatman's Watch or dying with the rogue lineage war. There's a lot of things to cover in the depths. It's basically a whole new place, but don't be fooled by the fact that it's another dimension, because it's no bigger than the Arisia Island. But the content that is consistent in this place is just massive. There's loads of new mobs, variations of mobs that have purpley particles radiating off them. These are corrupted mobs, and they're roughly 3 times harder. If you run across some at a low level and they aggro onto you, you might as well just give up. But if you kill them, you get huge chests and a bit of luck, which is actually good over time if you can consistently kill these mobs, so it's not that bad after all. The main problem that you have to focus on while being in the depths though is your sanity. Over time, generally being in the depths drains your sanity, and you can see this by the increasingly blue screen and the movements that your character makes. The less willpower / sanity items you have, the more quicker you'll go insane. This problem can be mitigated by certain potions that you can brew, talents, and straight up having a lot of willpower. Oh, potions, I forgot that kinda existed. They can be made in cauldrons found around the map, or a mantra that lets you summon one. There's loads of information on ingredients and types of potions you can make, but some older examples look like this. One thing you might be thinking about, just maybe, is how the f do you get out of this place and back to the overworld? Well, you have to go inside the massive walled Colosseum, make sure it's the sloped one and not the flat one, and simply go forward until you see a gate in which you go through up a wooden elevator. When you go up the elevator, you're prompted by literal gods that speak to you casually, and depending on your level, a mob comes up and attacks you. That's it. LOL. Final important thing that I need to cover, which is absolutely necessary in the entirety of Deepwoken, the complete pinnacle, the finale, are resonances. Resonances are obtained by playing this game for a shit ton of time, and the progression towards it is a hidden stat called progress. Progress is basically luck, except you don't lose it ever. It's like a slow bar that goes up and up every time you kill a major boss, such as the Duke or Primadon. To call upon your resonance, you must actually get downed in the depths, and at that point the sound of bells chiming and a circular aura rotates around you, prompting with 3 cards which are your choices for your resonance. If you're unhappy with your bell, you can go to a cave and open a door with your resonance by pressing E, in which you talk to this creepy ass statue called Yun Shul, in which he just gives you another option for resonances. But to sum up resonances as a whole, they're pretty much OP ass abilities that a high level should rightfully have that distinguishes them from lower level players. Recording and planning this video for over 3 weeks gave me a pretty cool insight on this game. Even though I still do not consider myself good and have gotten my shit rocked on several occasions, I still think the game is super enjoyable. If you're into RPG games and lore stuff, Deepwoken is a really good game for that kind of thing, and I would recommend you buy it. There are of course exploiters, bugs, and times where the game seems incredibly boring and outright garbage. Personally, the game offered me over 250 hours of pure gameplay in which I quite enjoyed, but now it's to the point where there's nothing left for me to do. At the end of the day, Deepwoken is progression based with an endgame, and you can't really expect something like this to be replayable for long periods of time. For myself, I enjoy the card concept of this game very much, the RNG that was consistent in getting good cards. It made Deepwoken a lot more fun than it could have been, but it's just a matter of time when you do everything that the game offers you that you can't make fun for yourself. PvP was the only replayability part of the game, but the combat arena really killed fighting in the actual overworld. However, playing this game alone for a long time and finding out shit for myself was quite cool, I can't lie. This entire essay wasn't made to promote Deepwoken at all, but rather just for myself, talking about a game that I've enjoyed over the past few months, being quite an original and refreshing experience on Roblox. This video took me an incredibly long time to pull off, and I would appreciate if you left a like and commented on your thoughts, anything that I missed out, and future video ideas. I know I've missed a bunch of things and a shit ton of lore, but I don't think I'm educated enough on that topic to give a solid and factual statement towards it, without getting some things wrong. So yeah, pies are good for health. For you.